Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm making a figurine I wanted to do for a while now. In any case, I wanted to make something with fire for a long time. Maybe a fire fairy or the fire element. I wanted to experiment with this stuff for some time, UV putty. Then I bought a while ago for my very first tryout customization with a Barbie. I didn't have a monsterhighdoll yet, and this became my ice fairy. I also bought this stuff, polymorph. I never used it. I don't know what I can do with it exactly, so I wanted to try all this out on a doll with some fire. And almost as always, I wanted to start with the base. I had this broken antique copper and messing ashtray I inherited from my grandparents ages ago. Yeah, I'm old too. And as a child, I found this thing funny because you could close it with the round globe, and then you wouldn't smell the ashes. It was more nostalgic thing from my past, but it's an heirloom, so getting rid of it would be a shame maybe. So what better than to put some fire in it again? The only thing I was a bit concerned about that this was a very small base on three crooked legs. I used a copper ashtray before, I found in a thrift store once, but that ashtray was large and sturdy. This one perhaps is not, but I like to try it anyway. So this ashtray could be closed with the half sphere. That's what I liked about it as a child. But it wasn't working for a long time anymore and I had no use for it for this project. So I cut it off. Yeah, that gets hot. I tried to clean all the old ashes with soap and even some grown-up tools, but it was a tough job. And after a while of trying to get it totally shiny again, I quit. Maybe it's okay to leave some of the tarnish. There's gonna be fire everywhere anyways. So, okay, moving on. I already drilled a hole where the wire should go through for my fire girl. And I also drilled a second hole where the wire for the LED lights should go through. I would like to try that anyway, even if it doesn't work out. The hole is there. In the meantime, I already prepared the head of a Gina fire doll. And this hair was too greasy, yucky. I put her head in hot water for a minute, so the head gets soft and then it should be easier to get it off. Hmm, it broke. And it was tough to get it out. There was glue on it. Maybe it was stuck. And then I got rid of all the hair that's inside. There was so much glue in this doll, no wonder the neck broke. But I will fix that later. I removed her face paint with 100% acetone. And yeah, all the tools needed some cleaning too. and I gave her the slow shrinking spot treatment. Do you remember I told you about that dear friend of mine that is cleaning up a lot of her hobby stuff? And I got a lot of nice things from the shells and the clay and a lot of other things, and also a lot of feathers. And the feathers that I had now were more suitable for a phoenix type of bird. So from that moment on, the idea of making a phoenix was quickly made. Being reborn from the ashes. How appropriate, don't you think? I thought I wouldn't have enough feathers in the right colors, so I'll try to paint them. Some with the Derwent Inktence pencils and some with ordinary acrylic paint. But I didn't like it at all. And I wanted first to design the wings so I could see how much I would need. So I started with making the base for the wings and the tail. I had some felt left from old hobbies and made some templates where the feathers could be glued on. I wanted to use some wire so I could bend the wings later, depending on how I wanted the wings to look on the doll. I saw a technique from another customizer and I could swear I saved the link, but I can't find it anymore. I'm so sorry. But she glued the wire on fabric, and when all the feathers were in place, you could still move the wings. And I thought that was genius. I used felt as the fabric. This was a bright red color, and it wouldn't be bad if you could see that later through all the feathers, I thought. I didn't use pin needles for this. I'm lazy, and they were all the way downstairs, so I used some clamps. I glued everything with Bookbinders glue, and that stuff glues almost anything. And I put some weight on it while they dried. When I started with this idea and I didn't have the feathers yet, and I wanted to make them from polymer clay. I did that once with my cursed ballerina, but with this little ashtray I was afraid that it would become too heavy and would not stay firmly. And the real feathers were very light. That would be okay, I thought. So when the base for the wings were dry, I started to divide all the feathers and glue them on the tail and the wings. And at this point I started to realize that I might not have enough feathers. But I wanted to tackle that problem when I have to. I was going to do a round of thrift store shopping anyway, and I hoped to find some more. I have at least 4 of those shops near me. Chances are I would succeed, right? But I hated the wings so far, and I was convinced they wouldn't look any better with a lot of more feathers. So I threw the wings away, and for me, who has trouble making decisions, that was remarkable. Yeah. But what to use now? I had some EVA foam in various sizes, so I took the thinnest one and sketched out some feathers and wings. At this point I hadn't decided whether I kept her arms or not, and I did some math on how many feathers I would have to cut. My math is not so good. I had to cut some more at the end. I decided how I should cut the feathers, and for now this will do, but I have to find a better way of making feathers. I have to improve my skills. I smoothed out the edges with a ball tool. I sculpted some polymer clay on 2 pieces of wire and I baked it in the oven. Meanwhile, I was deciding whether I keep the arms or not. Her arms like this attached to the wings, so she could wave while flying. No, they had to go. The wings were her arms now. I saw them off and tried to make the armholes larger. But they kept rolling and so I glued them first and then I could drill the holes for the wings. By the way, this is my second video without music. What do you think of it? Is this calmer or do you miss music? Let me know in the comments. I would like that very much. I forgot to shape the wings before they baked and logically they broke when I tried. But I glued them back together and I put another layer of polymer clay at the top and baked that as well. So my fire girl is a hybrid, or a harpy, or a griffin kind of being. Half bird, half human. She would have bird features, the wings, the tail, the feathers, and she would have human features. And I wanted them to blend everywhere. And there were too much scales on this body, so I sanded some off. Off camera I made most of the wings. I glued all the feathers with superglue on the wing base. But I had to figure out how I wanted to finish the top. I saw Cadmillion do it with foam clay once, and April Rose folded the feathers on the top. And I should have done that in hindsight. But I didn't want to copy them, so I cut the top feathers out but left them attached to each other so I could fold them over the top. The edges of all the feathers I smoothed out with the ball tool. So no music, eh? I find it very calming. And you, the watcher, you can listen to your own music in the background. That's a win-win, right? Yeah, I had to make some more, but I'm happy with what I made. I would never have thought I could come so far. I'm learning with every project and I love it. Oh yeah, the base. I tried soldering the metal wire to the base. I soldered, I think, 40 years ago for the last time, but I thought it wasn't that hard to do. but it would not stick. I tried and tried and tried, and I tried some more. And then my husband said, "Do you heat all the parts you need to solder?" No. Okay, let's try again. I took a new wire and I started over. And this time I had success. I used some tape to hold everything and hot glue to give extra support. I put a button switch on the sphere with Velcro and tried to glue the sphere underneath the base. Hot glue didn't work, but Superglue comes to the rescue. I started with the LED lights I wanted to put into the fire I made with the clear UV putty. I also soldered all the LEDs together. I didn't do this with my moon fairy and it bit me in the ass. Two lights didn't work at the end. It was a mess, but everything still worked. So I wanted everything secure before I put in all the little stones I wanted between the fires. I used resin for this and put it little bit at a time in and let that cure under the UV lamp. And I had to make sure there was no contact with the base. I had to put some tape to prevent that from happening. Okay, fast forward. This took so much time with the soldering and the lights, and I have to make my girl yet and paint everything and I put everything together. And I sound boring, but I meant that it took a lot of time and the video would be too long, so I made a lot of fire and put everything with resin on the pebbles. I colored the fire with resin paint in orange and red. I also filled two geode molds with colored resin layer by layer. And with the resin I made some more fire. Back to my girl. I wasn't sure what to use for her tail, so I tried some things. With some heat the EVA foam gave a nice curl and I liked it. So I made her tail and head feathers also from EVA foam. And it was face up time. I filmed everything, but I have to fast forward. Video is going to be way too long otherwise. And I gave her multiple layers of Mr. Superclear and soft pastels and watercolor pencils. But whatever I did, I was not happy. But to think a bit about her face up in the meantime, I sculpted her body with air drying clay. I gave her a bigger butt, a bigger tummy and some bigger boobs later. And I kept struggling with the face up. I wanted her to look down on the fire where she was just reborn out of, and the rest had to come as it comes, but yuck, I hated it. I'm just not good in making the face up yet. I saw a lot of great customizers do it and I should learn from it, right? Well, till now not so much. Hopefully one day I will get the hang of it. And I had to figure out what to do with her head. I had no yarn and nice colors for this project, and I didn't want her to have hair anyway. She should have some feathers on her head as well. But how and with what material? After some thinking, I decided that the wings should be more to the back and her shoulders had to be more to the back also. And when I was sculpting this, I also put some clay on her head. And I liked what I saw. So her body needed some base coats of gesso and white acrylics. And what the heck, I painted her face also. Let's start over, shall we? After that I gave everything a nude color, and her head and shoulders got some reds and oranges. Face up try number, I don't know anymore, and somebody blushing. Meanwhile, I knew I didn't want her face to be so bright, so I tried to give her neutral colors. But the bright eyes, the bright blue eyes, had to return. And I'm still fasting forward. It took me ages to get something nice here. And then I was thinking on how to spice it up a bit. I had some metallic flakes in gold and copper. I tried it and I liked it. The bird features like half her legs I made golden, and between all the feathers and her human features I put some copper. I also spruced up the feathers a bit with some rhinestones. And as I'm editing this video and watching these wings, maybe I will put some more rhinestones on them. So, checking if the base is solid and sturdy. So, checking... Doe nou weer vervelend. Gekkie. So, checking if the base is solid and sturdy, and yeah, I put a lot of more fire in there. I love it. Time to put my firebird lady in her place. The first and second time it didn't work. So on the third try I put a lot of super glue around her foot as well, and that worked. She stands firm now. And the lights all work, yay! I covered the wire with some little petals, and it sounds easier than it is, but I tell you. Okay, she needs her wings. Some super glue and hot glue should do the trick. Some super glue for her tail and head feathers. But I had to smooth out her tail and head feathers, and I thought I could do that with the copper foil. And I sanded the edges a bit, but I didn't like it at all. And I had to paint the transition now anyway, so I covered it with air drying clay to smooth everything out. And I wished I did the tail before the wings were on. They were so much in the way. Hopefully I remember these kinds of mistakes for the next time, but knowing me, I won't. My memory is bad. I also put some rhinestones on her head and on her shoulders as well, that I also smoothed out with clay and paint. Oh, and I glued her eyelashes on with Bookbinders glue. And yeah, as I see this while editing, I decided to put more rhinestones on her wings. Who would have thought I loved rhinestones so much? But I'm out of red, so I have to get that first. And I can't find any in my neighborhood, so I had to order it online. And then she's done. I'm so pleased with her. What do you think of my Phoenix Fire Lady? I would love to read all your comments. And if you watched so far, maybe hit the subscribe button and give this video a like. It would help me a lot. Hope to see you next time. And as I already mentioned, I put a lot of more rhinestones on her wings. And I'm a bit snowblind from all the glitter now. Bye!